Team, I think we shall get underway for session number 2 for today. Did you enjoy your morning tea? Yes? That's terrible food here, isn't it? Absolutely awful. And you're having 2 coffees. You intend to be wide awake, do you, Andy? Good lad. Well done. It's been really lovely catching up with a number of you during the break, and my apologies for not having the opportunity to chat with a few more of you beforehand, but I'm looking forward to connecting again at drinks at the end of the day because there's so much to talk about. That talk by Joe Lowry absolutely blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. He did a little podcast recently, and I'll drag up the contact for you, the link for you. He did it with 3 Australian guys who I'd never ever heard of. Money of Mine. It was real. Did you hear it? It was absolutely no holds barred. I mean, they were drinking more Australian beer than you could poke a stick at, I think. And by the end, things, tongues may be a bit looser, but really good discussion. Really, really enjoyed it, which is where I learned chemical, not commodity. So we've got 7 more opportunities in this session for you to listen to, starting with this fellow here, the mild-mannered Dr. Mike Jones, the MD of Impact Minerals Limited. Now, he is overseeing company performance, leading towards production at Lake Hope High Purity Alumina Project, and he strategises the exploration of their other holdings. They raised $60 million post-listing. He steered them through challenges. He secured an 80% stake in a prime HPA deposit, which is located over in my home state in Western Australia, and he is propelling them towards imminent production. It's an HPA project which now takes centre stage for Impact's future development. Would you please make Dr. Mike Jones very welcome?
Thanks, Chrissy. Thanks, everyone, for turning up today. And, of course, thanks to Vertical Vents for putting on this show today. And it's actually one of the first events like this post-COVID. It's one of my first visits to Melbourne in the last 3 or 4 years. It's good to see some familiar faces. And it's great to tell you the new story about Impact Minerals, the new player in HPA. And this is our project Lake Hope in Western Australia. And in Impact, we like to call this the magic lake from time to time. And it's magical not just because of the way it looks at certain times of the day and certain times of the year, but because in the top 2 meters of that lake lie many, many billions, that's B with a B, billions with a B, dollars worth of high purity alumina. And we believe that it's going to be a transformational acquisition for the company over the next few years. And I'm going to talk to you about 3 things today. One is what HPA is, high purity alumina. What is so magical about this lake that's going to lead us to be what we believe is one of the cheapest producers in Australia, if not globally, by a significant margin, and what our plans are going forward over the next 2 to 3 years. So what is high purity alumina? And how many here have got Samsung phones? Just a quick raise of the hands. Yeah, there's quite a few of you. Fortunately, they're not exploding in your pockets like they were a few years ago. And that's because the principal use of HPA is a separator between the anode and the cathode within lithium-ion batteries. It's a chemically and thermally inert material which basically prevents these explosions from happening. And of course, we've heard from Joe, there's a massive increase in demand forecast for lithium-ion batteries over the next decade. And as a result, there's a significant forecast increase in the use for high purity alumina. And we see this in this graph here. This is from Commodity Research Unit. We've pinched this from Alpha HPA, who we'll talk about later. And this is a simple supply and demand curve. And this is the amount of tons of HPA required between now and out to 2030. And we can see here in the dark blue, this is actually LED demand, light emitting diodes. And so there's a significant amount of HPA used in light bulbs and increasingly in micro LED screens, both on your phones, which are coming from Apple, and also Samsung and other high definition TVs are all using high purity alumina. And again, big forecast in demand there. And if you're not aware, the USA just banned incandescent light bulbs. And so going forward, all the new globes in the US are going to be LEDs. So between those two, they're going to drive the significant increase in demand. And these are the supply and demand forecasts, and we're a supply deficit forecast around about 26, 27 in through here. So that's the time when we hope to be producing HPA and putting it into the marketplace. So Al2O3, that's aluminium oxide. what is it exactly? So it's a high purity aluminum oxide. So you get aluminium metal and then oxidize it to form aluminium oxide. And it depends how pure it is as to how much it is worth on the marketplace. And so you'll hear those of us in the HPA space talk about 3N and 4N and 5N. And this is 3 nines, so it means it's 99.9% pure. 4 nines is 99.99% pure, and 5 nines is almost 100% pure in through here. And these are sort of the benchmark prices per tonne that we can ascertain at the moment in the marketplace. So 3N, a lot of it's used in the sapphire glass and your phones, trading between 5,000 and 15,000 US dollars a tonne. The benchmark that we all use is 4N, 99.99%, and that's trading on average at about 20,000 US dollars per tonne. And then in the 5N and 6N space, we're in rarefied air here, very expensive, but you can't build a business. These around this is a relatively low volume, although high margin. This is where the material needs to be made, and this is where the big demand is in through here, and that's where we aim to be. So it is a high margin and high demand business. And how much of the material do we have? Well, at Lake Hope in WA, we've basically got 900,000 tonnes of alumina, and most of which we can convert into high purity alumina. So rounding out, you can see that in the top, in that lake there, we've got something in the order of sort of $15 to $20 billion worth of HBA, just sitting there waiting to be dug up. And this is the resource that we put out early this year in June. So more than enough at 10,000 10,000 tonnes a year average production. You're looking at a multi-decade operation there. So there's no shortage of HPA, and it's a matter of how quickly we can get to market. So where is our project? It's in Western Australia. It's a tier 1 jurisdiction. It doesn't get any better anywhere in the world to work apart from WA. And we're sitting out here about 500 kilometres east of Perth. There's great infrastructure, and it's a great place to work. This is what the lake looks like. Now, these are salt lakes, and they're called playas, P-L-A-Y-A, hence the joke in the first slide, the new player. And we can see straight away one of the first advantages. There's actually a road, a gravel road that runs right up to these two lakes, which are basically sit in a very unique climatic position and a very unique geological position. And this makes this a very special lake anywhere in the world, and even within Western Australia. So this is a player system, and our resource sits in these two lakes into here, East and West Lake. And I would argue that perhaps it's the perfect ore body, because this is us undertaking the drill program, which produced 900,000 tonnes of HPA. This is Roland Gotthard. He discovered the deposit and also the metallurgical process to go with it. And here he is doing the resource drill out, and we've got a plastic tube with a rubber hammer, and you hammer that into the ground about a metre down, dig it out, and that's what it looks like. It looks like plasticine. So we drilled out $20 billion worth of HPA for a total of $60,000. So that's the best return on any drill program you're ever going to get. So quite a remarkable deposit. The other thing about it is that it's actually naturally very fine grained. This is what they call a laser particle size distribution. And the important thing is these curves in through here is that the majority of the material is actually less than 16 microns in size. And in fact, a lot of it is actually down at the nanometer scale. So it's incredibly fine grained, and that leads to amazing kinetics, because when you've got very fine grained material, it's essentially infinite surface area, which allows us to use a sulfuric acid approach to our leaching, which again gives us a very low cost of production. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So this is the drilling results in one of the lakes, in the East Lake. And you can see here's the road in through here. And basically we just drive off the road, and the high grade material, 27%, sitting here in purple, right in the middle of the lake. And so we're going to be able to just drive off here and dig up the top 2 meters of this lake, store it on the side of the lake, and then we're going to be able to ship it off site. It is truly a world-class deposit. It's got world-class characteristics, and it's going to be, I would argue, possibly the shallowest, highest grade open pit anywhere. It is high grade. It doesn't require any crushing and grinding. We're going to be able to dig this up, free digging, and we're going to take it off site and process it in an industrial yard, most likely in Kalgoorlie. That's going to do something amazing, because it's going to leave behind a tiny environmental footprint. In essence, this deposit is actually still forming. We're going to leave a hole about 1 metre deep, and for the first 20 years. and it'll probably fill up and replenish itself over the next 100 years or so. So quite amazing. Very low carbon emissions because there's no crushing, no grinding. Everything is going to be demandables. I like to say the highest carbon emission is from the smoko, that the 2 truck drivers and the digger driver that are going to truck this stuff off site have at 11:30 on a Friday morning. Limited long-term rehab, and we've already got heritage clearance. So we undertook a survey with the Naju people only a month and a half ago. There are no heritage impediments. We will negotiate the mining agreement with them, and so that is a massive tick in our favour. And here I am doing the pre-strip, as I like to say. This material is like plasticine, so even when it's wet, you can basically walk on it. So, as I mentioned, the unique characteristics of this lake mud give very unexpected kinetics. And we can actually leach this material with a very novel new sulfuric acid process. Sulfuric acid is important. A lot of our competitors in the space are using hydrochloric acid for their leaching of kaolin in a more traditional mining project with all the contingent problems with mining. And so the sulfuric acid makes it much cheaper to process and also gives us saleable waste products. And that's going to be very important in terms of the cost of production. We're getting great recoveries from our initial work, and we have a pre-feasibility study in progress right now, which is going to optimise that. And we've already achieved 4 nines, HPA. This is a picture of the crystal. It's a beautiful corundum for those of you who are into mineralogy. And as I say, we're optimising that at the moment. And we believe very strongly that we can produce other materials that are part of the battery architecture, aluminium nitrate, sulfates, as well as other high purity metals and salts. So this is a fantastic project, and we will have our scoping study out within the next few weeks. We're a couple of weeks behind schedule. The board's asked me just to double check all the figures because the numbers are pretty special, and it really does demonstrate that we're going to be one of the lowest cost producers in Australia, possibly by a significant margin, and potentially even globally. And that's actually very important when you're in a space like the HPA space, because it's all about pricing. It's all about your pricing power. And as we've seen with Joe's talk, you know, the prices of the commodities, whether they're commodities or not, lithium, etc. If you're not one of the lowest cost producers, you won't make it through the cycle. Hence Ken Brisden almost slashing his wrists, 5 years ago, whenever it was. And here we are 10 times the price. So that's going to put us in a very powerful position, I think, in the marketplace. And that's demonstrated here. This is a cost curve analysis that we've done in-house. So currently, most HPA is produced by the Japanese and the Chinese, and they produce it by refining of aluminium metal. So they dig up bauxite, they put it through a very dirty process, the Bayer process, forms a lot of red dirt, red mud that you'll read a lot about at the moment, big environmental overhang, and then they produce aluminium metal, and then they refine that to produce aluminium oxide, HPA. And hence, their costs are about $15,000 to $20,000 US per tonne in terms of their cost production. There's some new entrants, hydrometallurgical approaches, Alpha HPA, their code is A4N, talk about them in a minute, and FYI. Their feasibility studies, which are about 3 years old now, are indicating they were producing at about $6,000 to $7,000 US per tonne, so a step change. And we believe that we're going to be down at least at that level, if not even lower. So that will make us probably, as I say, one of, if not the lowest cost producer anywhere. And that's a massive advantage for us. What does that mean? Look, there's a number of players in the HPA space, but the standout story is Alpha HPA. They were like us back in 2019, small junior exploration company, came across a novel project, came across a novel chemical extraction process, which they ended up using on a chemical feedstock. And their market cap has jumped from 10 million to 1 billion over that time. And so if you can get it right in this space, you can become a world-class company, as Alpha HPA are demonstrating, and we believe that we're on that same journey. I mentioned the Naju people. Nothing will happen without their consent. As I said, we've already got heritage clearance. We'll be lodging our mining lease application in the next quarter and entering into discussions and negotiations with the Naju to commence mining. And we're hoping that the mining and environmental approvals, because of the nature of the project, will be done in 2 to 3 years as opposed to 5 to 7 years, as if you have a standard, say, gold project, something similar. PFS results are not the sexiest thing to put out in the marketplace, and so we will be putting out news from our ARC and battery metals project in Western Australia. We're completely surrounded by Anglo-American and a long trend from Julimar, coming big structures down through there, and we've got some very exciting news for nickel copper PGE to come from that. Impact, we've been around for a while. There's not much to dwell on here, except we are well funded. Our major German shareholders put $4 million into us in our last raising in April. We're well funded for our PFS work into the middle of next year. And until recently, share price has about doubled since we announced the project. It's come off a little bit, so it doesn't get better than today to buy some shares. And I urge you to put us on your watch list. And forward plans. So 23, we put out a maiden resource. We've got the scoping study will be out shortly. PFS is well underway, and we'll be lodging our mining lease application. So end of 23, we'll have enough material to put in front of potential clients then for offtake and qualification over the next six months to 2 years, and then basically roll through the PFS into the DFS, and we should be in pilot plant production about 1,000 tonnes a year around the time 2026 when the supply deficit is forecast, and we're going to be a significant player in the space by that time. And then, as you'll see in the scoping study, ramping up to 5,000 and then 10,000 tonnes per year production. So I invite you to come with us on the journey. We aim to be one of the lowest cost producers of HPA globally. We've got a unique deposit in a tier 1 jurisdiction. We've got a cost disruptive metallurgical process, which is well into PFS right now. We're actually building out our capabilities in metallurgical technologies and our final product specification, and we're aiming to deliver into this high margin growth market with significant upside potential in 2026. So put us on the watch list and come on the journey with us. Thank you very much.
I love having Dr. Mike up here because he's always a timely man as well. He's very focused on everything and he's so good at time management. All right, our next company. Andrew Radonjic moved. Are you moving towards the stage, Andrew? Would you like to be next? Because you're not on my schedule. Greentech Metals is where we're going next. They're up 270% year to date. They've had some exploration success. They've also got a touch of neurology. They've got exposure, yes, to a range of critical minerals and battery minerals, but is their lithium opportunity in the Pilbara, Kobe, that's getting everyone very, very excited. And they are just a stone's throw from a little tiny bit that we might have heard of. I think I mentioned at the very start, Azure's Andover. So they're not too far from Andover. So I was actually asking the team what they love about Greentech Metals, and they said it's the prospectivity. There is just so much potential. So who's joining me this morning? You're coming. Come up, because I thought I had, I'm sorry, but I thought I had Tom Redcliffe down, but I don't, do I? Okay. I've got the better looking one, and you and I met George in Perth. In Perth, and it was George that was telling me how excited he was about the Greentech Metal team. So we've given Tom a rest because he's been out travelling the world talking to potential global investors, and we've brought in the fellow that is very passionate about this company. So please make him very welcome, George.
Yeah, thanks, Chrissy. And it's absolutely right. I'm really passionate about this company and the projects we've got. And that one word, prospectivity, is really important because as we roll through the slides, you'll see exactly what's going on with Greentech. So Greentech's only a relatively new company, listed early last year, so we've only been around for about 18 months. And we listed on the back of some battery metal projects, most notably a copper project at Wandoo. And that's a really exciting project in its own right. We've got a great board of directors. As you can see, I look nothing like Tom, so there's no mistaking. Tom, who's our geologist and executive director. Guy Robertson, non-executive director and COSEC, as well as CFO. And Rob Webster, who is a mining engineer with a long history of development of projects, and he's a non-executive director. So as a board, it's really well-rounded, and we've got the skills to be able to drive the company forward. And as you can see, the achievements that we have gained in the last sort of 18 months of existence have been quite outstanding. Over 100% increase in mineral resource at the Wandoo copper project, and now, and most notably, in consideration of where we are in the market, the discovery of significant lithium pegmatite field. And we'll talk about that in the ensuing slides. It's a little bit of market information. I won't dwell too much on it. We've got around 70 million shares on issue, about $4 million in the bank, and a market cap of around 30. I think it's closer to 35 at the moment. Very tightly held share registry. Big believers in what we're trying to do and the projects that we've got, and again, that word prospectivity and what we're looking forward to bringing to market in the short term. Majority of our projects, in fact, all of them are in Western Australia. It's a fantastic location to work within. We've got commodities in the battery metal space, being lithium, copper and nickel, and they're commodities that are in high demand and will continue to be in high demand as the years roll through. The projects that we'll be looking at are in the West Pilbara region, and that's a real hotspot. It's becoming a really important regional area of Western Australia. Originally, it was thought of as an iron ore hub because that's where a lot of iron ore activity takes place. But as you'll be able to see from our presentation and others certainly in the region, there's a lot more going on there than just iron ore. So as you can see, we've got our portfolio of projects here. We've got over 200 square k's of tenure in nickel, in VMS-style copper deposits, and of course, and importantly, lithium pegmatites. And they are in our Kobe or our Ruthwell and Osborne projects to the north, and that's only about 10 kilometres from Karratha. And Karratha is a major industrial city. There's airports, logistics, infrastructure, everything that you could ask for an exploration company like ours on our doorstep. Not to mention the port of Dampier, which is a major operational port. So it's ticking all the boxes as far as development's concerned. And again, as Cristian pointed out, we're only about 25 k's from Azure minerals, so it's a great neighbourhood to be in. When we listed, we had the Wandoo copper project, again, an exciting project, a little bit further to the south, 6 million tonnes, just over 1% copper. So it's a really compelling project, and there's a lot more prospectivity there as well. And then back up to Ruthwell, there's a modest resource of 265,000 tonnes of just over 0.5% nickel and copper. There's some more drill targets there, and so we need to balance our efforts between all these three prospects as we're moving forward to be able to build the value in the company and bring information to market. Of course, with the lithium and the market the way it's going at the moment, that's where a lot of the money and exploration targets will be spent. I don't need to dwell too much on these. You've seen a lot of these already this morning, but we know we're in the right space. The lithium market will grow. There's going to be a shortfall in supply versus demand, and we know we're in the right commodity. We know we're in the right market. And as far as jurisdictions is concerned, as Mike pointed out before, Tier 1 Western Australia, it's an amazing place to be. And we've got the right people to be able to drive the projects and the company forward. There's a lot of activity happening in the lithium space. As you can see from the notes on the screen, everyone's going into it. In Dametsu, into Delta, and now Chris Ellison, as you may have seen from the reports this morning. Gina Reinhardt's in there, Bill Beeman, of course SQM in with Azure. So this region, this sort of northern Western Australian region is becoming a real hotspot, and there's bound to be more and more M&A activity. There's a lot of people interested, various sectors of the supply chain, so there will be a lot more action taking place as far as M&A and development's concerned. And we think we're in the right location to be able to take advantage of that. And the one thing that also sets us apart, other than having a well-rounded board, great shareholders, great management, is we're brought on the Obsidian Metals Group. And that's led by Michael Fodios, who has a long history in development of lithium projects. He's explored, he's found, he's built, he's developed mines, he's exported the product. So having him on board allows us that opportunity to be like 2 steps ahead of everybody else, we think. And we're going to leverage his network of contacts around the world to be able to help us in the development of our Ruthwell and Osborne projects. So it's a fantastic asset to have on our side. But it's all about the projects for the moment, and we believe we've got some really exciting projects. We've got 2 at the Ruthwell and the Osborne tenements. As I said, only about 10 kilometres from Karratha, about 20 k's from Azure. At present, we've got 10 kilometres of strike length, and that's growing. We've got rock chip samples peaking at 3.6% lithium oxide, which is fantastic. And what's happening is these grades are persisting over strike length, sorry. They're not just sporadic, they are consistent, and they're consistent from west to east, and that gives us real confidence in moving forward and in through the further exploration of this project. So just pointing out the Ruthwell or the Kobe trend, 7.5 k's of strike length, 4 meters wide of the pegmatites at surface. And as you can see from those rock chip sample results, we're getting lots of plus 1.5% lithium oxide. So it's really exciting. These rocks are there for a reason, so there's lots happening underground, and that's what we're going to find out when we get through our maiden drill program. But from what we're seeing on surface, it's really compelling evidence that this thing is quite an important discovery. And as we track down to the Osborne tenement, the southern trend we're calling it, at present 2.5 k's of strike, and these strike lengths are open, we just haven't finished exploration yet. The widths at the southern trend is 40 metres wide on surface. So that is a considerable width for a pegmatite field. And as you can see, the rock chip samples peaking at 3.6% lithium oxide. We know we've got great results at surface. We know we've got the potential to really have a serious discovery once we start drilling up this thing. And as I pointed out before, the results are continuous. So as you can see, we're getting high 1.5s from the west all the way through to the east. So it's a really exciting time to be doing some work on these projects. And when we look at the southern trend down at Osborne at 3.6% and 2.3%, that's also compelling evidence that this thing is going to be a really exciting project once we drill it out. We've been doing a lot of ground recon, a lot of soils, geochem, rock chip sampling. And what we're trying to do is really just map out all the tenement packages, work out exactly where all the pegmatites are. And you can see all those black marks. I can get this thing. All those black marks all through these tenements. That's all the pegmatites that we've mapped so far. So as you can see, we've only covered half the tenements. So there's a lot more upside as we continue with our exploration. And we anticipate in the coming weeks to have a full blueprint of information on these tenements. We've got programs of works in and approved. We've got 4. We're waiting on heritage clearance, which should be fairly soon, we like to think. But everything else is lined up for drilling. And we believe that we will be drilling in October, which is only a few short weeks away. So in all of that, and when these rock chip samples start coming out of the lab, we'll have this consistent news flow, consistent rock chips, consistent soil sampling and results out of that. And then more importantly, as we move forward to maiden drilling, the drill results from that program. And it'll most likely be a combination of diamond and RC drilling, somewhere between 50 and 100 holes, a couple hundred metres. So there's going to be some serious drill action taking place, probably around 15,000 metres or so in sort of the coming months. So it's a really exciting time to be in this project. There's a huge amount of prospectivity, and we keep coming back to that word, I know, but it's really exciting for us. And we're looking forward to commencing that drill program. When Greentech listed, however, it was on the back of this project, the Wandoo Copper Zinc project. And in its own right, it's a really exciting project. It's a tenement a little bit further south from our lithium tenements. So it's only about 40 k's south of Karratha. There's sealed roads, there's train lines, there's all the infrastructure that we could need. And we've got this interesting deposit. It's been mined before, mined by Wim Creek and also Fox Resources. They pulled out some pretty interesting sort of copper results at 27%. So it's high grade, and they obviously removed the high grade portion of it. But since we've listed, we've done over 6,000 metres of drilling, increased the resource by over 100% to 6.2 million tonnes. And there's potential there for that to grow even larger. That's an image of one of the existing pits there at Wandoo. So as I say, it has been mined before. And Wandoo is like a typical, we call it a VMS field, which is a volcanogenic massive sulfide field. And what that looks like on that image that you can see on the bottom left, it's like a pod of different prospects. And as you can see, we've got a multitude of prospects on this tenement. And it's only 9 square k's, so it's only 2 k from the southwest to the northeast. But within that small field, we've got 6 prospects: the Wandoo pits, Austin, Shelby, Yannery, and Azure. And since the listing, we've done a lot of drilling, as I mentioned before, and we started out drilling in and around the Wandoo just to work out with the resource and what was going on. And as you can see, there's some pretty thick intersections, 42 metres, 62 metres, at just over 1% copper. So it's quite a compelling project. And as we stepped out and we started drilling it a little bit further down, we saw that the results were getting a little bit light on the copper, but they were getting more heavy on the zinc. And with these kinds of deposits, these VMS deposits, these little pods are actually shaped like flying saucers. So in the center sort of section, you've got a really thick part, and then it tapers out to the thin edges of this flying saucer. And in the middle, it tends to be copper rich and then tapers to the zinc. And that's why we're finding this really thick sort of intersection of copper. And as it comes down, it tapers out. And as we're drilling, we're hitting this other mineralisation underneath. And we thought this potentially just an extension of that Wandoo mineralised event. But as we're tracking down, we're getting wider and wider until we hit sort of a 20-metre intersection at just under 1% copper. And that's when the technical team realised that this is actually a separate mineralised event. And it has an enormous potential because of the way that it's thickening up at depth and extension. So that's going to be one of the priorities that we've got. It's called the Austin Prospect. And we believe, again, there's that word, prospectivity is huge, just in that one prospect alone. So we call it the sleeping giant because when you have a look at the mag image, you can see the size of the imprint that the Austin conductor has over the existing Wandoo pits. It's a separate mineralised event. It's getting thicker at depth. It's increasing in copper percentage. And we believe if we step that drilling out, it should get bigger and bigger. And because of the size of the imprint, we believe that it will far eclipse the Wandoo East, let alone the Wandoo West prospects as far as copper mineralogy is concerned. And with the Wandoo pits at sort of 4-5 million tonnes, it could be quite a compelling addition to the mineral resource. So upcoming work program. A lot more groundwork to do at Ruthwell and Osborne to really fully map out the lithium prospectivity, design the drill programs, and as I said, in a few short weeks, hopefully we'll be on the drill rigs. And as you all know, the truth's in the drill bit. So we get some good results out of that and we'll continue the work. We'll do some more ground recon, some more exploration, follow up, do some more drilling at the Wandoo Copper Project, and that will lead the information flow over the next few weeks and months. So we've got a positive outlook. We've got fantastic projects at Ruthwell and Osborne. That's going to drive the value of the company. We've got awesome copper project, almost $1 billion worth of copper in the ground, and that will add compelling value to the company. We've got funding to get the job done so that the news flow won't be interrupted with any further placements at this point. Great projects, great prospectivity, a great team, great location. We're on mining licenses for the copper, so we're on a fast track, and Greentech's well placed to take advantage of it. We have a booth outside, so please feel free to pop past and have a chat, and just like to thank you all for the opportunity to talk.
Well done, George. Thanks so much. Brilliant talk. All right, some interesting news flow from our next presenter up here on the stage, Venture Minerals. They've been talked about for a couple of things: their innovative use of AI, the discovery of boron, rare earths in clay, green mining in Tasmania, game-changing lithium extraction technology. Is now the time to get on board? We can say that the price is historically low. So to update us on the story, will you please welcome their MD, Andrew Radonjic.
Great, thank you, Chrissy. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And it's great to be here at this Melbourne chapter of the New World Metals Investment Series. And thanks again to the Vertical Events team for putting on this fantastic event. Today I want to talk primarily about the Mount Lindesay flagship project. I'll call it a New World Metals project and call it Critical Minerals project, but it's got tin, tungsten and boron, and I don't think there's nothing like this, quite safely say that, on this platform here today. I'll also talk about our recent push into the rare earths sector. The Mount Lindesay project, located in the northwest part of Tasmania, has already had $45 million spent on it. We've done 100,000 metres of diamond core drilling. We've already done an open pit feasibility study back in 2012. It is one of the largest tin tungsten projects in the world. It's very unique. It's located in a tier 1 jurisdiction. And yes, the west coast of Tasmania is already net zero emissions. There's hydropower going through our tenement. There's a 3 gigawatt wind power plant on the books to be built next to us. So we're very blessed by location. And certainly with the Marinus Link now coming in and supported by the Labor government, the federal Labor government, funding half of that. Victoria, that's you guys out here, funding 33 million of it, 33% of it, and Tasmania 17%. Obviously need to save its money for its stadium. And with tin prices now well above 10-year average and 3 times the price of copper, I put to you that tin is an EV metal, and to the world achieving, it's very critical to the world achieving a green economy, and certainly the time for tin is now. Disclosure, the project, the Mount Lindsay, I suppose in hiatus for a period of time there due to commodity prices falling in 2014, 15, 16, and then finally rising in 2019, and we sort of dusted off the project. Before ESG became a bit of a theme, we were looking at going underground, higher grade, smaller, lower capex project. But as we were doing that work and getting very close towards releasing a study earlier this year, we had some work come through from CSIRO, which we'd engaged, and it took some time to get the results, but finally I realised that we could extract boron out of our tailing stream. There's a lot of our tins associated with boron, and we're looking to extract that right now through Curtin University, who is one of those very important groups that are working with the federal government in trying to work and put innovative solutions into extracting critical minerals, and boron is certainly one of those. So we've got 2 postgrad hydrometallurgists working on that to generate the process flow sheet, that part of the flow sheet to put onto the tailings, get some costs in terms of operating and capital, and then complete the study towards in about 12 months' time. So that's an exciting development. The underground mine, what it's going to mean for Mount Lindsay is that we'll have a much smaller footprint, reduced footprint by 70%. All the tailings and on the waste rock will go back into the historical mine, what was mined historically over 100 years ago. So it will also have battery-driven electric equipment. Our major shareholder, Dale Elphinstone, obviously have access to Caterpillar to get that equipment down the hole. So it will be, as we're targeting, sustainable tin tungsten mine using renewable energy. I won't touch much on the Chalice JV. They're currently working on getting ready to do some drilling in our Southwest project. I'll expand a lot more about the rare earths we're doing in Western Australia. We've got a new clay-hosted rare earth discovery. The grades are very similar to meteoric, and we're looking to generate a resource before the end of this year. The Riley iron ore mine is on care and maintenance. Obviously, the price is approaching 120, so it's starting to get interesting again, as it was back in March. Sensor did the JV, which Chrissy touched on in terms of the AI solution of looking at the area to the north of the Golden Grove mine, which 29M have, which has got potential for lithium. So we're obviously barracking for them to be successful. And the Coolum project is not only a nickel copper PGE target, as Impact touched on, same area, but also it's also got some rare earth targets. Our price, as Chrissy pointed out eloquently, is very low at the moment. It's a $25 million market cap. We did have a market cap of $200 million on the 30th of June 2021. Remember, Chalice is still a JV partner. Obviously, Chalice is not as promotable as it was maybe a few weeks ago, but still deep pockets. We're not spending any money there. We've got a Julimar lookalike target. Just moving on, the team has been with us since the start. It afforded us the opportunity to pivot onto the increase in tin and tungsten prices and the critical minerals thematic that's been going through. So that was very fortunate for the company that people stayed around during the doldrums of the 2015-16 period of time. That's our list of projects, but like I said, I'll be focusing very much on Mount Lindsay, and we'll touch on the rare earths discovery. For those of you who don't know Tasmania, this is the northwest part of Tasmania. 60% of the export GDP comes from a handful of mines in Tasmania. Without these mines, virtually Tasmania would shut down. So it's very important. Hydropower, there's a dam sitting here, hydroelectric power station sitting here, one sitting there, power lines running through our tenement. Renison Bell, Australia's only tin mine, operates just down the road. The Rosebery copper lead zinc. The Savage River, Australia's only magnetite mine, been going since 1966. And the King Island mine has just reopened with Group 6 metals, fully supported by Dale Elphinstone again. That's mining at Mount Lindsay in 1914. As you can see, there's no trees standing. So all the growth is regrowth, despite some people saying otherwise. This is next to Mount Lindsay. In fact, Mount Lindsay is just sitting up here. There's a pipeline running down at Water Race This gentleman, 1911, this is in the Tasmanian Mail. Big feature on the reward workings, alluvial hydraulic blasting. There's a power line there generating electricity. This is all not very new, this area. This is very much historic mining regrowth area. So let me not be fooled by others who may describe it otherwise. Tin, just a little bit about tin, just very briefly. It's endemic in all our lives in terms of tin, because it's used in solder, 96% tin. Without tin, your mobile phone does not operate. There's about 4 cents of tin sitting in your mobile phone. It's the solder, it glues, it connects everything electronically. In everything, your washing machines, your TV, everything that's electronic has tin in it. So if the tin price goes to $100,000, which I hope it will one day, your phone will be worth another 12 cents. So it'll have no impact. So tin, very, very important, very connected to the fourth industrial revolution. It is very much hand in hand with the economy, green economy, as we go forward. There's a list of other uses there. The 5G network, obviously there's a fair bit of, an EV, a lot of tin sitting there, which have got around about 400 grams in that particular diagram. Your charging station, your fast charging station will be 1 kilogram of tin per charging station. Now the world needs, to support this technology super cycle, another 50,000 tonnes of tin. Currently the world produces 400,000 tonnes, that's 12.5% more. Where is it coming from is the big question I hear you all asking. Is it going to come from Indonesia, dredging the seafloor? Potentially, I suppose it depends if you want to do ESG or not. Bolivia, Brazil, Russia, China, looks like a bit of a naughty list, to be honest with you. If you want sustainable tin, you want to get it from jurisdictions like Australia and probably Canada. So that's very important going forward. A little bit about tungsten, since our Group 6 metal friends aren't here. I suppose a few comments. In the Ukraine war, obviously they're using up a fair lot of tungsten, and NATO are supplying all their weaponry, ammunitions, Korea supplying likewise, the US, and HIMARS weapons carry 120 kilograms of tungsten each round, so they're chewing through it pretty rapidly. So the world demand for tungsten is doubling for defence side of things between now and 2031, 6% growth, 24% of the growth in 2022 is purely defence. So this is truly a critical, it's on everyone's list, not on a couple of countries, but tungsten's super important. It's controlled by China, and hence the world has a hunger for Western sourced tungsten. A bit more about the project, a bit of the history. We've already drilled it out. The higher grade portions drilled out 15 by 20 metre spacing, Rolls-Royce version of the resource. The grades you see there are like Renaissance type grades, 2% tin. These are King Island type grades for tungsten. They both sit in the same rock, as well as 15% of the rock is magnetite, which produces 65% con, and there's 0.1% copper sitting there as well. Now the boron, it also sits outside of the main high-grade tin zone, but with the tungsten and the copper and the magnetite. And these sort of grades you're seeing here, and remember, for those of you who don't know much about boron silicate class, computer screens, boron sits, as much boron as there in rare earths are there are in the magnets is with boron. So it's in the wind turbines, EVs, fertilizers. It is super important. It's the fifth element of decarbonisation as quoted by INR or 5AE, market caps respectively of $600 million and $150 million. We have the same grade boron sitting in a zone that's already got tungsten and copper. So some pretty outstanding numbers. If you don't know much about boron, it's a duopoly between Eddie Ardman, which is a Turkish state-owned enterprise, and also Rio Tinto with the boron mine, aptly named in California, which is running out of reserves. Hence the desire by Rio to have the Jadar project in Serbia built, which is a lithium boron project. A little bit more about Mount Lindsay, 100,000 metres of drilling, I said before, 70% measured indicated. Like I said, previous price is 3 times that of copper. Tungsten's a pretty healthy price at the moment at $310 per metric tonne unit, which is a 10 kilogram unit. And there's plenty of potential at Mount Lindsay. And I'll just flick through that very, very quickly. Renison Bell down here, that's the Renison mine sequence heading up towards Mount Lindsay. We've been drilling there. And in that drilling, we found some rare earths, which I'll touch on a bit in a second. That's zooming in right in the area, that's the reward. That's where those historical alluvial workings were previously, on top of the Renison mine sequence. It's scant, so it looks like we're pretty close to something there that's still developing that story. And these are the rare earths sitting around the historically mined tin up here in the Gossan zones, and we were getting up to, as you can see, up to 2,500 ppm in the rare earths. So we got a little bit interested in rare earths, and I'll pretty much quickly swing on to our rare earth discovery in WA, but we scouted it around, had a look. We found in this geological data set some pretty high numbers sitting out to the east in an area called Brothers. So we picked that up, and we then did a JV just to the south of us, where there was 49 metres at 1,300 ppm drilled by co-funding hole drilling campaign in 2020. Now the individual drilled two 61-metre deep holes, 200 metres apart, looking for a carbonatite like Mount Weld, very shallow hole, so you'd be surprised whether deep enough to start off with. There's a magnetic feature there, there's a gravity feature, and there's calcium. So great elements, but very broad space data. He got up to over 2,000 ppm into clay. In 2020, he didn't recognise it. Clay-hosted rare earths weren't a thing. They certainly are now. And we've ended up drilling around there and received these sort of results. 90% of our holes hit results of over 30 to 40 metres running 1,500 ppm. That's double the grade of some of our peers who've got resources out there. And within that, we've got about a 10-metre zone running, as you can see, 2,500 ppm, which is meteoric type grades. The great thing about this asset is we're sitting 60 kilometres east of Yalgoo. We're just off the Mount Magnet Geraldton Road, bitumen highway, and also next to a gas pipeline. This area has only been 20% drilled. The tenements that were granted that back in June. We're intending to go out there and drill some more holes now. We can see the potential for well in excess of 1 billion tonnes at 1,500 ppm total rare earths, and probably a nice sweet spot of 500 million tonnes at 2,500 parts per million. The difference here is no people out here. There's no farms. The meteoric picture you see quite often, it's green, lots of farmland. Here there's virtually no one here. So this is well placed. Tier 1 WA jurisdiction has been said several times here today. We're pretty excited by this. We're going to be drilling this. Meteoric's got a $400 million market cap, and we do not. So have a close look at that space. I'll pretty well leave you with that. If you've got any further questions, come and see us at the booth.
Thanks very much, Andrew. Now, when I introduced our next presenter at RAU a bit earlier on in the year, they were all about gold, gold, gold and their Paris project. So last night I sat down with my cuppa and Auntie Google, and into the search bar I popped in Talk Metals and news, because that's how I get all the latest bits and pieces on it. And you know what it came back? It came back with temporarily out of service due to high load. Oh, for goodness sakes, no, wait. And sure, it took me ages to get in to find more news out about Talk Metals. So lots of news flow in the last week. It's been consistent from our next company. This fellow here is Cristian Moreno. I've got something queued up for you, Cristian.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you very much.
Talk's lithium project is right next door to the reboot of one of WA's most sought after lithium mines. It's 600 metres from Bald Hill. Let's talk New Dawn. Would you please welcome Cristian?
Well, let's start with a little bit of Colombian accent for all of you. And first, I'd like to mention Glencore, that is bidding $1.8 billion for Bald Hill lithium mine, 25 million lithium, 1%. And Mineral Resources looks like is bidding $1 billion for this particular project. Torque Metals is the owner of the 2 mining licenses, pre-native titles, 600 meters toward the west of Bald Hill. Good morning, my name is Cristian Moreno, Managing Director of Torque Metals, and today I'm going to explain you why Torque Metals is one of the best junior gold, lithium, and nickel exploration companies in Western Australia. So let's go directly to the point. The share price the last week went up, I think that up to 200%. We were on the news, that is quite good. So the acquisition that we are considering is for acquiring these tenements nearby my Paris Gold project. So this is the new Dawn Lithium project, just 600 meters to the west of Ball Hill. We have the Paris Gold project to the north that is connecting us to St. Ives. We are the neighbor of St. Ives. And now we have the Penzance project, nickel project, that as well is connecting us to St. Ives. We have neighbors, Lunon Metals, Black Mountain, of course, Goldfields, and of course, Ball Hill. So this is not a diversification. That's what I think. What I think that this is regional consolidation. I don't need to go to South America. I don't need to go to Canada. It's too cold over there. I rather prefer to stay here in the safest country in the world, in Australia. I'm paying $150,000 for this option to acquire this project, super cheap. And if everything goes well, if we intersect lithium, the next drilling campaign that is gonna happen the next week, we are gonna pay $1.5 million cash, 15 million shares, and 2% net smelter royalty. Glencore is offering $1.8 billion, and Mineral Resources, $1 billion. So this transaction is quite cheap. So let's go directly to the point. We have three beautiful projects: the new Dawn Lithium project, the Paris Gold project, and the Penzance Nickel project. So the new Dawn Lithium project, as I mentioned before, 600 meters towards the west of Ball Hill Mine. The Paris Gold project is connecting us to St. Ives, and the nickel project is full of neighbors with a lot of nickel. My current size of, or the current size of my tenements is around 300 square kilometers. With the acquisition, we're acquiring 200 square kilometers. In total, we will have 500 square kilometers in Western Australia, in the best place for exploration, nearby lithium, nearby gold, and nearby nickel. But what is really important to mention is 12 mining licenses, pre-native titles. I don't need to wait for drilling. I'm going to drill the next week. By the way, plenty of infrastructure nearby. So we are not producers, guys, we are explorers. What we like to do is come up with a beautiful resource, put in beautiful grades over there, and then sell it off. That's it. I have Ball Hill 600 meters far away from me. Why do I need to build a processing plant? I got St. Ives, is my neighbor, with plenty of capacity for processing the ore. What do I need to create another processing plant? So the intention of this company is come up with a potential mineralized resource and sell it off, okay? The new Dawn Lithium project. It's beautiful to see that it's just 600 again meters far away from Ball Hill, 26.5 million tons lithium, 1%. This is the resource of Ball Hill. They are drilling over here and they are drilling over here towards the west, towards my tenements. And these two tenements, 2 mining licenses, pre-native titles. Guys, I'm going to drill the next week. What else is important? There is a tantalum resource over there that was done by Tantalum Australia. And it's interesting to see that the deepest hole is 30 meters vertical depth. So no one has tested this particular project after 30 meters. Torque Metals actually was the first one not only to receive this and analyze this tantalum resource, but also the first one to assay for lithium. And we come up with grades of 6% in multiple rock chips. So I'd invite you guys to go to the latest announcement. We have 6%, we have 3%, we have 2%, we have 1% lithium in rock chips. So I'm expecting, and I will be very amazed if we are not intersecting beautiful lithium intersection in our next drilling campaign. Diamond drilling, by the way. So plenty of information in the market. You guys want to go to Hot Copa. I shouldn't quote this Hot Copa. But anyhow, you're gonna go there, you wanna read about all the research of this tenement, all the documentation, everything is indicating that we will have a significant pegmatite and lithium resource over there. Hopefully, that is what we are going to intersect in the next drilling campaign. Again, this is my 2 mining licenses, pre-native titles, plenty of pegmatites over there already mapped, regional pegmatites already mapped, and you can see these little dots over there. They are drilling, and this company is under administration. Anyway, I don't know what they are doing, but they are going towards my tenements. The distance between here and here, so if you check 600 meters, this is just 200, 250. So the drilling is going towards my tenements, and the resource, it looks like, is going towards my tenements and your tenements if you guys want to invest in this company. This is beautiful to see as well. This is the new Dawn Lithium project. You can walk 2 minutes, the mining license boundary, and Bald Hill Lithium Mine, 26 million tons lithium, 1%. Again, $1.8 billion from Glencore, $1 billion from Mineral Resources. It's beautiful, isn't it? Additional tenements, not only these 2 tenements. I've got these tenements over here, these tenements over here. So I'm going to start exploration, mapping, and these sort of things in the coming weeks as well. So the potential is not only in these 2 tenements, but we can extend the potential. So it's real what is happening here. Again, 6% lithium rock chips over there. And well, these are the lithium rock chips. 1 meter, 1.5, 2 meters, super big. So this is not a sniff of lithium. This is real, okay? The crystals of pegmatite and spodumene are like this. So let's intersect them, guys. What else? Additional pegmatites everywhere in these tenements. So it's quite understandable. We are in the pegmatite region nearby Bald Hill, so this is full of pegmatites. So I'm not saying here I have intersected of map pegmatites in my tenements. What I'm saying here is I got lithium in rock chips. I'm going to drill 2 mining licenses, pre-native titles. This is gonna be really, really good soon. And what else? So Pensan's nickel project, as I mentioned before, neighbor of Lunon Metals, Cambalda Nickel, and Lanfranchi Nickel. So we are on the magnetic anomaly. There could be plenty of nickel mineralization over there. What I'm going to do is review all the magnetic anomalies and explore for nickel in the future. What else do I have? I have the Paris Gold Project, beautiful intersections, quite strong intersections, high grade, shallow mineralization. At the moment, the sentiment of the gold is not quite positive, but gold always comes back. Okay, so now we are lithium. We have the lithium potential, but we also have gold. It's not potential, it's real. And we have nickel potential, by the way. So again, no diversification. Is regional consolidation. I have the infrastructure, I've got the neighbors, I've got processing plants, I've got the roads, it's in Western Australia and it's in Australia. All the beautiful grades of gold, plenty of gold already intersected. So I'm working super hard to come up with a potential mineral resource estimate about the gold and generate something solid when the sentiment of gold is back, so we will be prepared. Again, additional discoveries. This is the capital structure. As I mentioned before, the last week we went up to 200%. So the market cap went from $12 million to almost $40 million. We have just 130 million shares on issue. A really small market cap. That's why the reaction of the share price. And if we intersect lithium again in the drilling, well, I don't know what is going to happen with the share price, to be honest. Cash, plenty of cash at the moment. And important to mention that my board of directors, Patrick Berg, ex-executive chairman of Meteoric in Brazil, Andrew Wosket, ex-managing director of Minotaur and the Metallica, quite successful in taking overs. So hopefully we are not going to be taken over by Mineral Resources or Glencore. I need to explore my tenements first. So yeah, this is the capital structure, quite solid, quite healthy company, no issues. The major shareholders should have at least 6 million shares, no more than that, free fall. The founder and the vendor, they don't have more than 4 million shares. So this is a company owned by shareholders, not by the vendors, not by the founders, nothing like that. This is not a holiday company. It's a serious company with a serious project, with serious potential, again in Australia. And what is coming for this company? I don't need to wait and negotiate the sort of Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act or anything like that, because my mining licenses are pre-native titles. When I'm going to drill the next week. More than 2,500 meters, more than 20 holes. And believe me, if I intersect lithium over there, I'm going to drill, I don't know, 10,000 meters, come up with a beautiful mineral resource estimate and sell it off. Simple, easy, quite easy to understand. And this is my project. As you can see over there, that is Ball Hill. And this is the new Dawn Lithium project. That is the boundary of the of the mining license. And all this stuff that you can see over there, guess what is that? Spodumene lithium. Beautiful, isn't it? Thank you very much for your time. Apologies for my accent. And if you invest in this company, the only thing that I'm gonna promise you is that I'm gonna keep working hard to make this company big. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Well done, Cristian. Great presentation. Does your wife have to compete with this spodumene? Does your wife have to compete with this spodumene? I don't think so. I'm thinking so too. Next up, we've got a rare earths player backed by the one and only Chris Ellison. Now, there was a lot of excitement when they listed, and it wasn't that long ago. Would you please welcome Executive General Manager of VHM? This is Carly O'Regan.
Thank you. Hi everyone, thanks for joining us this afternoon. So I'm here to talk today about the opportunity that is VHM. For those that are yet to follow us, we are a rare earth and mineral sands company. Our assets are based in northwest Victoria, close to the towns of Swan Hill and Kerrang. Now, we have a lot of infrastructure around our site. There is no need for us to build any rail. Rail is about 18 kilometres from our process facility. And the three assets that we have are the Goshen project, the Canny project, and the Nowie prospect. Now, today I'll be focusing predominantly on the Goshen project. This is our most advanced project. We have a definitive feasibility study. We're at detailed engineering design, roughly about 80% complete there. We've got an advanced approvals program. We already have we have an ore reserve and a very large mineral resource estimate across it. And we're looking at being in production in late 2025. Now, if we just quickly touch on the Canny project. Now, we just recently announced a large mineral resource estimate for that, 192 million tonnes, and the grades are looking near on double of the Goshen project for rare earths and rutile. So that's about 13.5 kilometres south of the Goshen processing facility. Then we have the Nowie prospect. So we just recently put out an announcement on that. We'll be putting out an MRE in late Q4, and that's about 19 kilometres north of the Goshen project. Our major shareholder is Chris Ellison. We listed in January, 9th of January this year, and our market cap is sub 100 million. Now, if we just have a little bit of a chat about our value proposition, we have very strong financials backed by a DFS. 1.5 billion NPV, IRR of 44%, and a very rapid payback of 2.8 years. We have the benefit of a dual commodity stream. Life of mine is 20 years, but we have the potential for upside for a further 20 years based upon the company ore reserves of 199 million tonnes. And we have just recently signed our final land acquisition, and we own 100% of the Goshen project footprint. So that has significantly de-risked the project. We have an advanced approvals program, and I'll talk to you a little bit later in this slide deck about that. Advanced flow sheet. It worked in conjunction with Mineral Technologies and ANSTO, And this is based on multiple metallurgical test work programs and major drill programs. We just touch quickly on our critical minerals that we have. So 87% of the Goshen rare earth basket value is made up of the key rare earths: neodymium, praseodymium, dysprosium, and terbium. So we have the lights and the heavies. These are required for the electric vehicle transition and other green renewable technologies. We also have the added benefit of zircon and titania. We have an offtake agreement, and we're actually in advanced negotiation for other offtakes that will be subject to future announcements. And we've also got the discovery of a new critical minerals province in northwest Victoria that stretches about 55 kilometres along the flank of the Lake Boga granite. Board and management. So those that do follow us, we have just recently announced, as of the 18th of August, a refresh board. We've brought on Ian Smith, Ron Douglas, and Mari Arneson. These three key board members have developed and operated major resource projects, and it supports the transition of the company as we're going into development and construction. So just to give you a little bit of a background on the geology overview. So we have an exploration target of 2 to 4 billion tonnes. We've got a company mineral resource estimate of 820 million tonnes. Company ore reserve, 199 million tonnes. The Goshen project footprint is 99 million tonnes. We have the Canny project, and then we have the Nowie prospect. And we have 2,800 square kilometres of contiguous tenements. And we just had all of our licence renewed as well. So together with the Goshen project, the Canny project, and the Nowie prospect, we're really looking at a major new critical minerals province in northwest Victoria. Approvals. Now, this is something I get asked about frequently. Approvals in Victoria, do they go hand in hand? And I can actually say confidently for the Goshen project, we are very confident. We have completed all of our environment and social impact assessments for our environmental effect statement. We have completed the adequacy review of that EES with the Victorian government, tick. We are now eagerly awaiting our public exhibition date from the Planning Minister, and that is looking likely October. After that, we go to a panel inquiry and then ministerial approval in Q1 next year. All of our studies indicate that the Goshen project is low risk. We have no native title over our project footprint. We have a very strong social licence to operate. We have the local government on board. We have 2 MOUs, one with the Gunnawara Shire and one with the Swan Hill Shire. And as you can see, this is where we'll be mining. There is no native vegetation. It is all cleared farmland. Our mining is to take place above the water table, so we're not intersecting the water table. The pits will be between 30 and 35 metres deep. And if we just touch on the community benefits that this project will bring, 250 jobs in construction, 400 jobs in operations, $1.3 billion to the Victorian state government, and $2.1 billion to the Loddon Mallee economy. Economics. So I've touched on the fact that we have a $1.5 billion NPV. We've got an average revenue of about $564 million with a free cash flow of $270 million that we'll be able to reinvest into further developing those Canny and Nowie projects. You can see we've got a 5 million tonne per annum project. It's based on a 20-year life of mine. It'll be conventional, open pit, truck shovel mining. There's no drilling and blasting here. Our minerals are already fully liberated in sand. Oh, okay, I'm going to switch to this one. The products that we'll be producing are a rare earth mineral concentrate. We'll then refine that into a mixed rare earth carbonate on-site at Goshen, and we'll also produce a zircon titania heavy mineral concentrate. If we talk about CapEx, and we talk about our peers, we're at the lowest end. For both of our phase 1 REMC and phase 1A mixed rare earth carbonate, 500 million Australian dollars. So we stack up favourably against our peers. Now, the reason for this, our minerals are already fully liberated in sand. It's a truck shovel operation. There is no drilling and blasting. There's no complex processing. And we have a very pure product. That rare earth mineral concentrate is 61.4% total rare earth oxide. Global energy transition. So we're all aware of the buzzword critical minerals. What does that actually mean? Well, we've got the Inflation Reduction Act by the US government. The Australian government has put out net zero targets for 2050. We're going to need all the neodymium, praseodymium, dysprosium and terbium from the Goshen project to actually try to attempt to meet those targets. Now, as of July, we finished our major pilot scale test work at the leading ANSTO facility. We had market leading recoveries. So for our light rare earths, which is the neodymium, praseodymium, 97% recoveries, 92% for the dysprosium and 94% for the terbium. And we have 61.87% total rare earth oxide. Less than 3% of our mixed rare earth carbonate contains impurities. That's including the uranium and thorium that were considered exceptionally low. That is critical. From this pilot scale test work, we produced a very pure mixed rare earth carbonate product, and that's it there in the white. We're now in advanced negotiation with Western offtake parties to take our product. So resource upside, I've touched on the Canny and the Nowie project. What does that actually mean? So with the addition of the Canny maiden mineral resource estimate, it really does position VHM to have one of Australia's largest rare earth inventories. We have over 590,000 tonnes of total rare earths, 5.1 million tonnes of zircon, 2.9 million tonnes of leucoxene, and 2.7 million tonnes of rutile. You can see there that the northwest Victoria is starting to demonstrate the geological characteristics of hosting an extensive rare earth and mineral sands province. You can see that patchwork white crisscross there. That's a Lake Boga granite. And we've got a stretch of 55 kilometres running along that Lake Boga granite. And that is sending out rare earths. Now, just to recap our approvals program, we're approaching public exhibition that is imminent. That is a key milestone for the company to get its ministerial approvals. Detailed design for the Goshen base plant is near on completion. We've got significant mineral resource exploration upside, and we'll be looking to put an announcement out on the Nowie prospect and finalising those offtakes with our strategic partners. So we'll be outside if you'd like some further information, and my contact details are up there as well. Thank you.
That was a very measured presentation. Thank you very much for that. Now, you know how the screen just went off during your presentation then? I was at the alternative home of the AFL Grand Final, which of course is the Optus Stadium, and a couple of years ago, and someone actually stood on a cord down the back. They wanted to plug in their mobile phone, and they found a charger at the back, pulled out the cord that was there, put in the mobile phone and took out everything. It was late at night, so we had no light, and we had about 600 people at a big award ceremony. So we've just had someone step on one of the wires down the back. So for a change, it wasn't our fault. We can put our hand on our heart just from someone's from the courts. Look at this fellow here. Now, I don't think I've ever had the pleasure of introducing you, have I? Was it once? How long ago was that? It was, oh, was it here? Oh, it was. Okay. So we're going to talk Azure, and we're going to talk the Andover lithium project. And I remember a couple of years ago when I was introducing Tony Rivera, we were talking about the fact that gold and nickel may be attracting him back to Western Australia to get involved in this small project that he was looking at. And then inconveniently, all these pegmatites kept jumping out James Duran and launching themselves in his way as he was trying to pursue his nickel. So tell us where we're at the moment. You had a really big raise recently, so successful that you stopped it early, yes. Correct?
Yeah.
Right. Would you welcome James, everyone, and let's hear more.
Good afternoon, everyone, and well, thank you for the opportunity to present the Andover Lithium Project story today. Andover, as Chrissy alluded to, was sort of a pivot back into Western Australia by Azure about 3 years ago. We purchased the project initially as a nickel prospect. So we've identified 2 nickel mineral resources on the project over about 2 years. It's only been over the last 18 months that we've really started to focus in on the lithium. The lithium is going to be the main part of what I talk about today, and it's obviously been what's generated a lot of interest in the company, particularly in the last 6 months. Our standard disclaimer, which you'll find on our website. Before we dive in, I do want to take the opportunity to acknowledge the Ngarluma people as the traditional owners of the land on which the Andover project is located. The Ngarluma have been integral in us obtaining the relevant heritage clearances and working with us on a day-to-day basis as we explore on the Andover project. Relationship we've managed to build up with them over the last 3 years, in particular with the nickel project, now into the lithium, has made life very easy for us, and we're expecting that to continue as we further develop the Andover lithium project. If there's one takeaway I want you to take with you as you leave today, it is that Andover is one of the best lithium exploration projects globally. 4 weeks ago, or approximately 4 weeks ago, we put out an exploration target of between 100 and 240 billion tonnes of between 1 and 1.5% lithium. If we meet the bottom end of that exploration target, that'll put us close to, if not in one of the top 10 hard rock lithium resources globally. So it's a significant project. If we get near the top end, around the 240 billion tonnes, that'll put us in the top 5 or higher in terms of hard rock lithium resources globally. It's a significant prospect that we're drilling out at Andover at the moment, and we're very much looking forward to keeping you updated as the project progresses. What we're aiming for is a maiden mineral resource estimate on the lithium project in Q1 2024. And I'll talk a bit more about that as we go through. A quick corporate snapshot. As you'll notice, our biggest shareholder there is SQM. They came onto the register in early this year. They saw the potential of Andover very early on, and they took almost 20% of the project for $20 million at a premium back at the early part of the year. As Chrissy alluded to, we've also just done a placement, and SQM have elected to maintain that 19.99%. The Creasy Group is another major shareholder at 13% currently, or just over 13%. Creasy Group, we purchased the Andover project off them approximately 3 years ago. It's a 60-40 joint venture with Azure owning 60% and the Creasy Group owning 40%. Creasy Group's been very supportive the whole way along, and Azure is the operator of the project, and the Creasy Group is free carried through until a decision to mine. Azure is making all the major decisions on the ground and keeping the Creasy Group, SQM, updated along the way. Now this is a fantastic slide. Any current shareholders who got into the company earlier this year would be very happy to see this. We've had a phenomenal interest in the company over the last 6 months. It's the releases we've been managed to put out with some of the drilling we've done to date have really sort of given the market an idea of what we're actually standing on at the moment on the Andover project. Of interest from this slide, we've just completed the first tranche of what is a $120 million capital raise, so $100 million as part of tranche 1, and then $20 million as part of tranche 2. We're also completing an SPP at the moment, which we've had to close it early as there was just too much interest in it. So that's for a further $10 million. Right, on to the Andover project itself. This is a slide that I particularly like. My role in the company is project development manager. So in terms of building a project, you don't get much of a better location than this one. Pilbara region of Western Australia, lots of large operating mines in the region. It's a fantastic place to build a mine. Some of our speakers earlier on have alluded to, Karratha is a major airport, so it's a 2-hour plane flight, regular commercial flights in and out of Perth on a regular basis. We can leave Perth and be on site within 2.5 hours, so really easy to get to. Road access runs straight past the project. We've got the Northwest Coastal Highway, which is a major highway in Western Australia, which runs right past the top of the project, so really, really good access. We've got commercial multi-user ports, so we've got the Dampier port just near Karratha there, which is a import-export port for roll-on and roll-off freight, so we can get stuff into the project really easily. And you've got Port Hedland 300 kilometres away, which is a major bulk export port. So great facilities for building a project. You then start to tick off the major services such as electricity, power, gas and water, all of which are running past the site. It's also becoming a real hub for renewable energy. There's some very big projects planned in the region, and so that'll be a major part that we'll be able to feed into this project as it moves forwards. From an exploration perspective, it's been one of the easiest places to set up. We've got a core shed located in Roebourne, good internet, really easy to operate out of, and then we've also got some fantastic accommodation, messing and all the facilities that we need to operate as an exploration company up there. So just to orientate you a little bit about where the project, or where we're located within the project, we've got 3 granted tenements out there with the lithium projects running across all 3 of them. The pegmatites, you can see they're mapped out in red. They're as wide as up to 5 kilometres, over a strike length of approximately 9 kilometres. That small white circle there, target area 1, is where we're currently drilling. And we've done about 42,000 metres of drilling there at the moment, with approximately 100,000 metres to be completed by the end of the year. Target area 1, you can see all the drill holes in black there. They've been targeting this pegmatite swarm, which is running in a northeast-southwest strike, and then they're dipping down towards the northwest. We've completed 155 holes into that prospect so far, and we should finish the mineral resource estimate drilling on that this month, and that'll enable us to move on and target some of the other areas that are high priority. If we look at, sorry, I'll just go back. If you look at the yellow lines there, they're the cross sections which we'll go to next. These cross sections, we've intersected some fantastic widths in terms of lithium bearing pegmatites there. One of the key takeaways, like you didn't see on this slide, is that they actually seem to be getting wider at depth. So we've completed drilling down to approximately 400 metres, and what we're seeing is they're consistently expanding at depth, and you can see that particularly in the right-hand side there. The drilling to date's managed to intersect these pretty well perfectly perpendicular, so the true widths, which on the next slide here, you can see we've got everything from about 70 metres through to 134 metres of true width, with grades ranging from sort of 1.5 through to 1% lithium. So these are some fantastic lithium drill results. So we're really happy with the way this is progressing at the moment. Just to remind you, this is all from the one target area, and we've got 3 target areas that we're looking to drill out by the end of this year. So looking at the 3 other target areas, we've started moving into target area 2. The drill rigs, we've currently got 3 drill rigs on target area 3 and 3 down at target area 1. So 6 drill rigs on site at the moment, which is keeping our site team very, very busy. I can't talk too much about target area 2 because we haven't released any of the results from there yet, but they are pending and should be out shortly. Once we've just to have a little bit more of a look at target area 2, you can see it's a long strike from target area 1. 11 holes completed to date, but we're seeing much the same as we saw with target area 1. So we're very happy with what's going on there. All we've got to do is just keep drilling. Our goal for this year is just to keep drilling and delineating what we believe we've got there. In terms of what we think we've got, this exploration target of between 100 million tonnes and 240 million tonnes is quite exceptional. 100,000 metres of drilling planned for this year. Most of that is focused on the mineral resource estimate drilling for target areas 1, 2 and 3, with the objective of converting that exploration target into a mineral resource estimate for Q1 2024. We're pretty confident we've got a world-class asset on our hands up there. So that's allowed us to start the next stage, which is all the studies associated with scoping study. We've commenced metallurgical test work with those results due out shortly. Geotechnical mining, those key studies feeding into the scoping study have commenced. We've got heritage clearances ongoing. As I mentioned earlier, our relationship with the Ngarluma people is very, very good. We're regularly doing heritage surveys across the site, so that's been about every 3 months we've got one of those planned. That's allowed us to clear all the heritage from the areas where we're currently planning to drill for about the first half of next year, and all the programs of work required under the relevant legislation is all in place as well. The good thing about the nickel project, or having the nickel project first up, is that we started a lot of the environmental studies very early on. So we're not starting cold with the lithium project. We've got 2 years of environmental studies already done. So we're talking flora, fauna, short-range endemics, the Steiger fauna and subterranean fauna as well. So we're really well placed to continue that biological studies, the environmental studies required to support an application to actually mine this, should that occur. We're also investigating all the other studies that we need to support that assessment, so they're ongoing at the moment. We're looking at releasing a scoping study in 2024, and obviously that'll be very much based on the mineral resource estimate that we define as part of the Q1 2024 release. We're not planning on stopping the drill rigs. We've got 6 on site at the moment, and the expectation is that they're going to just keep drilling. We're well funded to allow that to occur. We're well funded to complete all the studies that are required to support the next stage of development, so that scoping study. Just to close out, Azure Minerals and the Andover project, we are building a very, very bright future in the Pilbara. It's a world-class jurisdiction, and what we expect will be a world-class asset. Thank you very much.
Well done. Okay. Iggy Tan, come up here and join us here. Iggy has been a trailblazer in the lithium field for a long time. He is now blazing a trail in a technology called salt battery technology. And I had a number of questions about this from people, and I know that they're in here now. I said, you need to talk to Iggy about salt battery technology. So I'm looking forward to hearing it again. Would you please make Iggy very welcome, everyone?
Yeah. So you probably woke up at 2 a.m. in the morning going, I wonder what's the future of grid storage batteries? No? Well, firstly, let me talk to you about the future of lithium-ion batteries. Lithium-ion batteries are great batteries, and they're moving towards solid state technology. Who knows what solid state is? Let me explain to you what solid state is. So in a lithium battery, you've got the cathode and you've got the anode, and in the middle is a liquid electrolyte that is actually flammable. And so the lithium industry is trying to shift to solid state where they replace that liquid electrolyte with a ceramic piece. It's a solid piece that allows the lithium to go back and forth. So that is solid state technology. Who in this room has an EV vehicle? Yeah, a couple of people. So one of the challenges with the lithium-ion battery is when it catches a light, it's called thermal runaway. It's very difficult to put out because it actually generates oxygen at the cathode end of the battery. So very difficult battery to put out. So this is one of the challenges of lithium-ion batteries, safety issues. The other issue is that lithium-ion batteries only operate in a very limited temperature range. So down to 15 degrees and 35 degrees. So when it gets to really cold temperatures, the battery capacity drops to 70% because the liquid electrolyte becomes viscous and it slows the lithium reactions down. Lithium batteries generally last 8 to 10 years because lithium degrades every time you charge and discharge a battery. And you know from your phone, there is a limited life for these batteries. And then there's the price increase of lithium. The key ingredient of a lithium battery, it's gone up 5-fold in the last 2 to 3 years. So that's putting a lot of pressure on the lithium-ion battery industry. Cobalt is a key ingredient of lithium batteries. 70% of cobalt comes from the Republic of Congo. And there is ethical supply issues, so child labor issues and so on. And graphite. 90% of graphite is produced from China. So imagine one country producing all the major ingredients to all the lithium batteries in the world. So it represents a geopolitical risk. And then finally, copper. There is enough studies that show that copper, there is a copper crunch coming. There's not enough mines being built to even meet the EV demand. So my question to you, is there a battery that actually is totally fireproof, has a large temperature range, life beyond 15 years, doesn't use any lithium, doesn't use any cobalt, doesn't use any graphite, copper, or even manganese? Well, introducing to you the Serenergy battery. It's a sodium chloride battery. It's table salt and nickel metal powder. We didn't develop this technology. It was developed by the German Fraunhofer Institute. They spent nearly 35 million euros over 8 years developing the technology. And that's a battery. It's a 5 kilowatt battery. So it uses common table salt and nickel metal powder. Totally fireproof. There's no liquid electrolyte. It's actually solid state technology. It uses a ceramic tube. It operates down to minus 15 degrees, actually minus 40 degrees, and up to 60 degrees. So it's got a very wide temperature range. You can plop this battery in the snow and it'll operate without any problems. It doesn't degrade. Every time it charges and discharges, sodium ions doesn't degrade. So it's a life of beyond 15 years. We use common table salt. We don't use lithium. And actually, sodium is actually a very reactive material. If you remember your chemistry in high school, sodium sits under lithium in the periodic table. So it's an alkaline metal, very reactive. So it's lithium-free. We don't have cobalt in our batteries because the chemistry doesn't require cobalt. And the interesting part is that we don't have an anode in the battery. So we don't have any graphite or we don't have any copper. It forms the anode when you charge it, and it dissolves the anode when you discharge it. And I'll show you that in a second. So graphite-free and copper-free. So how does this battery work? Very neat technology. It's a ceramic tube, which is solid state. You fill that ceramic tube with salt and nickel metal powder, and there's a positive terminal that sits in the middle. The ceramic tube then sits in a metal canister, which acts as the negative part of the battery. So you can see a picture of that ceramic piece, which then sits in a metal cylinder, which acts as the negative part of the battery. So you can see a picture there. So how does the chemistry work? Well, when you charge the battery, the sodium ions migrate across the ceramic plate, which is a solid state, and it forms molten sodium on the other side of the ceramic plate. So that's the anode forming. It's a molten sodium anode. And the nickel's there to grab the chloride to allow the sodium to move across. And you can see this molten sodium forming as a cross section. So the unique part of this battery is that it forms its own anode, and when it discharges, it dissolves the anode. So there's no anode in the battery, no graphite or copper. And you can see here when it discharges the battery, the sodium ions migrate across back through the ceramic, grabs the chloride, and becomes salt again. So very neat technology. Well, how does the battery compare to other types of batteries? Well, there's the score sheet. We are very closely aligned to the LFP battery, lithium iron phosphate battery. As you know, LFP batteries is where Tesla are now moving all their cars to. Very similar energy density, of course, much safer, very low maintenance costs. We don't have any cooling fans on these batteries. It can operate itself without cooling. So where do we sit on the curve? This is a curve where the bottom part of it is the energy that the battery produces over a period of time, and the vertical is how much power it gives. So the red area is lithium ion batteries. The top of the red area is high power nickel cobalt batteries. So you need a lot of power quickly. And the low part of that is lithium iron phosphate batteries. Just, you don't need a lot of power, but you need a lot of energy. So we sit in the middle where we can deliver the energy density as well as the power. So what is our market? We're not focusing on EVs. We're focusing on the grid storage market. Now, the grid storage market is very simple. We've got a lot of solar panels producing electricity, wind farms, and it's supplying power to our cities. But the problem is that during the day, there's excess power. And did you know that Germany discharges $2 billion of renewable energy every year to the ground, and California about 3 billion. I read an article today that the Australian renewable energy discharges 30% into the ground because it's not used during the day. So this is where grid storage comes in. You can have a bunch of batteries on your grid. That's the future of grid storage batteries. Now, particularly also when more EVs are coming on. So an electric vehicle is equivalent to 5 households in battery size. But when you charge an EV, it's drawing that much power is equivalent to 120 houses. So as more EVs come online, you need these batteries. They can't be taking that off the grid. So that's the future of grid storage batteries. And even Elon Musk says their future of their battery production will be grid storage. We're ready to commercialize this technology. As I mentioned, Fraunhofer spent nearly 25 million on a pilot plant, so they're already producing these batteries. They're undergoing a lot of test work. So it's not a research and development, it's way beyond that. We're now commercializing the technology. As you can see, there's a 5 kilowatt battery undergoing tests there in the pilot plant in Germany. So the way these batteries are produced, you use alumina. You mix the alumina up and you make these ceramic tubes, which is the solid state. These ceramic tubes need to be sintered in a high temperature kiln. And then from there you fill it with salt. You do and welding all that together to produce. That's a 10 kilowatt battery undergoing tests. So you can see the cross section of these battery cylinders being put together. Our project is a 100 megawatt plant in Germany, where we have a joint venture with Fraunhofer. We are the majority shareholder of the joint venture. Saxony is the east part of Germany. A lot of developments there on EVs and batteries. And we've got land available, and we're now finalizing a definitive feasibility study for this 100 megawatt plant. So lots of automation and robotics, as you can imagine. And Germany is a great place because they have the automotive industry, lots of technology around that. The battery should be about 40% cheaper, according to Fraunhofer. And it makes sense because there's no lithium, there's no cobalt, there's no graphite, there's no copper, and so on. This is our first product, a 60 kilowatt battery pack, 100 amps, 600 volts. They are made of 240 of these cells. And if you take a cross section of it, there are 5 of these shelves. And what you notice about it is no cooling fans on these batteries. Most of your batteries in your car, 20 to 30% of the power is trying to keep the batteries cool. So we don't need cooling fans on this. It manages its own heat profile. Our major product is a 1 megawatt grid pack. So we take 18 of these 60 kilowatt batteries, we put it into a grid pack, and virtually it's very easy to transport. You put it, drop it on the deck, you plug and play, and you've got 1 megawatt of grid pack connected to your grid. So that's the grid pack. So we're currently producing 2 of these 60 kilowatt prototypes. And this is, as I finish it off, this is some vision of the battery production. So we start with the alumina, we mix it up, we then produce the ceramic tubes, which then have to be sintered to about 1600 degrees. And then from there, as I said, this is the kiln that sinters these ceramic tubes, all done in the pilot plant in Germany. And from there, they are checked for integrity. So this is a very quick check. You put a torchlight in and you can see very simply the cracks. They're then put into the shims and into the cylinders. There is welding that's going on to put it all together. And in the factory, we are designing the factory to produce one of these cylinders every 45 seconds. So this is the salt and the nickel metal going. You can see the welding that's going on, and also the test that is going under temperature. So very exciting technology, and we look forward to having a discussion at our booth. So thank you very much.